My name is Laura. I'm 38 years old, and I've spent the last 12 years teaching third grade in a quiet suburb just outside Chicago. I genuinely love what I do. There's something special about walking into a classroom full of 8- and 9-year-olds who still believe the world can be fair if you just explain things clearly enough. The way their eyes light up when they finally understand something is the best part of my day. But nothing in all those years of lesson plans and parent conferences prepared me for what happened while I was recovering in the hospital. I had gone in for a scheduled surgery. Nothing life-threatening, just something I'd been putting off for too long. My brother Mark offered to drive me and even stayed for the first couple of hours after they wheeled me out of recovery. He brought me those terrible hospital Jell-O cups and kept checking his phone like he had somewhere more important to be. I remember thinking he seemed distracted, but I was too groggy from the anesthesia to read too much into it. 3 days later, when the doctor finally said I could go home, I called Mark to pick me up. He didn't answer. I tried twice more. Nothing. I ended up taking a rideshare with my small overnight bag and the plastic hospital bag full of discharge papers. The driver was chatty, asking about my surgery, and I gave short, polite answers while staring out the window, wondering why my brother wasn't picking up his phone. When the car pulled up to the house our parents left to both of us after they passed, I noticed something was wrong right away. The front door lock looked different. It was newer, shinier, the kind you buy at a hardware store when you want to feel secure. My stomach tightened before my brain even understood why. I tried my old key. It slid in but wouldn't turn. I tried again, wiggling it the way I always did when the lock got sticky in winter. Nothing. A cold feeling started creeping up my spine. I knocked. After a long moment, the door opened. Mark stood there in a t-shirt and jeans, holding a coffee mug like he had lived there his whole life. Behind him, I could see moving boxes stacked against the living room wall. Some of Mom's old framed photos were still hanging, but the furniture had been rearranged. My heart started beating faster. "Laura," he said with that fake concerned voice he used when he wanted something, "you shouldn't be carrying that bag yourself. You just had surgery." I asked him what was going on, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled. Actually smiled, and said I had the locks changed for security. "You've been in the hospital. Someone had to step up and take care of the place." Then he told me he had already talked to a lawyer about transferring the title into his name because Mom and Dad would have wanted the house to stay with family, and I wasn't really in a position to manage it right now with my health. He said it so casually, like he was doing me a huge favor. He said it like he was protecting me from the stress of owning a home while I recovered. I stood there on the porch, still holding my hospital bag, and realized my own brother had changed the locks on our family home while I was under anesthesia. The betrayal hit me like a wave. I asked him if I could come inside. My legs felt shaky from the surgery and from standing too long. He stepped aside like he was granting me permission to enter my own house. The power dynamic in that moment made my skin crawl. The living room smelled different, like someone else's laundry detergent mixed with the faint scent of the coffee he was drinking. My mother's favorite armchair had been moved to a different corner. Mark's oversized TV was now sitting where our old family photos used to be displayed. It felt like someone had erased pieces of our family history. I asked him straight out if he had moved in, my voice barely above a whisper. He laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Well, someone had to keep an eye on the place. You were gone for days. The pipes could have frozen. Or worse, someone could have broken in." Then he mentioned that he had already started the paperwork to make things official. He said the lawyer told him it would be simpler if the house was in one name instead of two, especially since I had been unavailable during my hospital stay. He made it sound so reasonable, so logical. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not anger yet. Just a heavy, sinking realization that this had been planned. The timing was too perfect. The locks changed while I was unconscious. The moving boxes already there. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. I asked him if he had spoken to me about any of this before I went into surgery, trying to give him one last chance to show some remorse. He had the nerve to look offended. "Laura, you were stressed about the operation. I didn't want to burden you with house stuff. I was trying to protect you." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Protect me. By changing the locks on the house our parents left to both of us, by moving his things in while I was unconscious, by telling the neighbors I had signed over my share because I was too sick to handle it. The lies were already spreading. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just told him I needed to rest and asked if I could use the bathroom. He waved his hand like he was being generous and said, "Of course. It's still your house too, for now." The way he said "for now" made my blood run cold. While he was in the kitchen, I took out my phone and started taking pictures. The new locks. His boxes, the papers he had left on the dining table, some kind of legal-looking documents with his handwriting on them. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to document everything. I also noticed that several of Mom's framed photos were missing from the hallway wall. That small detail hurt more than I expected. He was already erasing our family history. That was the moment I stopped seeing him as my brother and started seeing him as someone who had made a very calculated decision. The man who used to share holiday dinners with me was now trying to steal my inheritance while I was at my most vulnerable. Have you ever had someone close to you make a big decision about your life without even asking you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. I didn't confront him that day. Years of being the peacemaker in our family had taught me that getting emotional with Mark never worked in my favor. He would just twist my words and make me feel like I was overreacting. Instead, I asked if I could stay the night because I was still weak from surgery. He hesitated for a second, then said it was fine as long as I understood this was temporary until the paperwork was finalized. The way he said temporary made it clear he had no intention of sharing the house long term. That night, while he watched TV in the living room like he owned the place, I lay in my old childhood bedroom and made a plan. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing in the doorway with that smug smile. I started with what I knew for certain. Our parents' will had left the house to both of us equally. There was no clause giving one sibling the right to take it if the other was sick. I had copies of the will in a safe deposit box at the bank, along with other important documents. I had never signed anything transferring my share to Mark. I had never even discussed it with him. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how carefully he had timed everything. Over the years, I had helped him more times than I could count. I co-signed a car loan when his credit was bad. I covered 3 months of his rent when he got laid off. I paid for Mom's physical therapy sessions when insurance wouldn't cover everything. I drove her to every doctor's appointment for 2 years while Mark always had work conflicts. I remembered every single sacrifice. Every single one of those times, he had thanked me like I was doing him a favor instead of carrying more than my share. The memory of his fake gratitude made me sick to my stomach. Now he was trying to take the one thing our parents had left that actually had real value. The house where we grew up. The place where Mom taught us to ride bikes in the driveway. The backyard where Dad built that terrible treehouse that we loved anyway. The next morning I told him I was going to stay with a friend for a few days while I recovered. He seemed relieved. He even helped carry my bag to the car, playing the role of the caring brother one last time. As soon as I was out of sight, I drove straight to our family lawyer's office, the same lawyer who had handled Mom and Dad's estate. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up with every document I could find. My hands were still shaking. I showed him the texts from Mark over the years asking for money. The bank statements showing transfers from my account to his. The old will. The deed. The new lock receipt I had found in the trash at the house. The evidence was overwhelming. The lawyer listened quietly. Then he asked me one question. Do you want to fight this, or do you want to make it go away quietly? The choice felt enormous. I told him I wanted Mark to understand that what he did was wrong, and I wanted the house back without turning it into a screaming match that would destroy whatever was left of our family. I still had some hope that we could salvage something. The lawyer smiled a little and said, "Then we do it the smart way. We build an airtight case and we give him one chance to walk away before we file." His calm professionalism gave me strength. What would you have done differently if you were in Laura's position? Let me know in the comments below. Over the next 3 weeks, I became the most organized version of myself I had ever been. I turned my pain into purpose. Every morning, I woke up with a clear mission. I scanned every text message Mark had ever sent me asking for help. I printed bank statements going back 5 years. I got affidavits from the neighbors who had seen him moving boxes in while I was in the hospital. One of them even had a Ring camera video of him carrying furniture up the walkway. The evidence kept piling up. I also quietly installed a small, discreet security camera at the front door of the house during one of the afternoons when Mark was at work. I didn't tell him. I just wanted a record of anything else he might try to do. The act of installing it made me feel powerful for the first time in weeks. Meanwhile, Mark was getting very comfortable. He posted pictures on social media of the backyard with new string lights he had put up. He hosted a small barbecue for some of his friends and captioned it "Finally Home." He even changed the Wi-Fi network name to Mark's House. Every post felt like a slap in the face. He sent me occasional texts checking on my recovery and reminding me not to stress about the house because he had everything under control. The audacity of those messages kept me going. They were evidence of his arrogance. Every single one of those messages went into the folder on my lawyer's desk. I organized them by date, by topic, by how much money he had asked for. The pattern was clear. The lawyer and I put together a formal letter. It wasn't aggressive. It was calm, factual, and devastating. It listed every documented instance where I had financially supported Mark, every communication proving there was never any agreement to transfer the house, and clear evidence that he had changed the locks and moved in without my consent while I was medically incapacitated. The letter was a masterpiece of quiet destruction. We gave him one opportunity to vacate voluntarily and sign a simple agreement acknowledging joint ownership before we filed in court. I wanted to give him one last chance to do the right thing. I signed the letter on a Tuesday afternoon. My lawyer sent it the same day via certified mail and email. I felt both terrified and relieved at the same time. Mark received it on Thursday. He didn't respond for 3 days. Those 3 days were the longest of my life. I kept checking my phone, wondering if he would finally apologize or if he would double down on his lies. Mark called me 3 days after receiving the letter. He was angry. He accused me of going behind his back and turning this into something ugly. His voice was shaking with rage. I let him talk for almost 10 minutes. Then I told him, very calmly, that the only thing I had done was document what he had already done to me. My calm voice seemed to make him even angrier. He tried to negotiate. He said he would move out if I agreed to sell the house and split the money. He said that was fair. The word fair coming from his mouth was almost funny. I told him the house wasn't for sale and that fairness had already been decided by our parents when they left it to both of us. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line. 2 weeks later, my lawyer filed the paperwork. We included everything: the will, the financial records, the neighbor statements, the video of him moving in, the text messages where he admitted changing the locks without my consent. The case was airtight. Mark hired a lawyer of his own. It didn't help. The evidence was too clean. His lawyer probably told him the same thing mine told me. This was a losing battle. The judge ordered him to vacate the property within 30 days. He was also ordered to reimburse me for the legal fees I had been forced to incur because of his actions. And because he had moved in and made changes without permission, the court required him to restore the house to its previous condition at his own expense. Justice felt slow, but inevitable. In the end, Mark didn't just lose the house. He lost the narrative he had tried to build. The neighbors who used to wave at him when he mowed the lawn now looked at him differently. Some of his friends stopped returning his calls after they heard what had really happened. His reputation was damaged in ways he couldn't repair. On the day he finally moved out, I stood on the porch and watched the moving truck pull away. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that it was over. Sadness that it had come to this. Then I called a locksmith and had every single lock changed again, this time with a system that required both of our signatures for any major decisions. I also upgraded the security camera. The act of changing the locks felt symbolic. I was taking back control. For the first time in months, the house felt like it belonged to me again. I walked through every room, touching the walls, remembering the good times. This was my home, and I had fought for it. If this story gave you hope or made you think about your own situation, hit that like button. It really helps more people see these stories. People ask me if I regret how things ended with my brother. I don't. Not for 1 second. What I regret is that he ever thought it was okay to take advantage of me while I was lying in a hospital bed recovering from surgery. What I regret is that he believed being family gave him the right to rewrite our parents' wishes and erase my name from something that belonged to both of us. The entitlement was staggering. Family should mean showing up when someone is down, not changing the locks while they're unconscious. Family should mean protecting each other, not preying on each other's vulnerabilities. I still talk to Mark occasionally. It's polite. It's distant. He knows he crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. I know I will never again let guilt or obligation make me smaller than I am. The relationship is damaged beyond repair, but I'm at peace with that. The house is still standing. The lawn is mowed. The lights come on at night. And every time I turn the key in the new lock, I remember that protecting what matters sometimes means being willing to lose people who were never really on your side. The pain was worth the peace I feel now. I chose peace. I chose clarity. I chose to stand up for myself without turning into the version of him that I refused to become. I chose to be the person our parents would have been proud of. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. Have you ever had family try to take advantage of you when you were at your weakest? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. I read every single one. Your stories matter. If this story connected with you, consider subscribing for more stories of quiet strength, strategic justice, and family betrayal. We're in this together. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves.